The first one is Clyde Ford from Guyana. Yes, Clyde Ford, can you hear us?
Good morning. Are you saying Clay Fowler
From
Guyana?
Yes.
A pleasant good morning. A pleasant good morning.
Can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
You can unmute yourself.
Yes, it was saying all the time the host was not allowing me to unmute. Sorry about that. You're hearing me currently now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good morning once again from Guyana. My name is Clyde Fowler. I am a Pan-Africanist, and I would like to share just a short, brief history of, share briefly on my country here in Guyana. On the 31st of August, 2022 at 7 p.m. GMT time, was around 1300 hours here in Guyana, they had a webinar on the legacy of colonialism and the transatlantic and trans-Saharan trade enslaved Africans globally. And the webinar was organized by the organization Birthright of Africa in celebration with the International Day of People of African Descent, with the support of OHCHR. And this was a public event of which I would have participated on behalf of the Pan-African movement here, the Guyana branch, and also some African organizations of which I'm a part of. They were the former UN PAD followers was doing their presentation, and they addressed the legacy from the past and their consequences on the following topics of concern. These topics were labor market access and equality, education and investment, climate change, well-being of health, human rights, laws, and governance. The guest speakers were Sarah Hamad from the United Nations OHCHR, Professor the Honorable Kevin Bell. They had Priscilla Robinson, the barrister, the president of the Birthmark of Africa, and members of the Export UN Working Group for People of African Descent, Dominic Day, the Export of People of African Descent, Miriam Preti, member of the UN Export Follower Working People of African Descent, Leo Johnson, UN Export People of African Descent, and Amok Alikati, Professor Kwame University of the Western London. There was live poetry by Levion Rock. The event was very informative, a session. It shows the relationship between the slaves and the continent. It was a reminder of how much we owe the Africans living around the world. These are the links to such talks that captivate and have a voice. What I will learn to this session is that we as Pan-African and African organizations should do more to help our people, both economic and politically, by applying pressure for change. We are encouraged by iloveblackpeople.com. We are encouraged to not forget that each day is a gift, and we must celebrate those who would have suffered, lost life, and country, that we are at the liberty to have this day and age to do not to the fullest, live life to the fullest, and make every day better, because we are in living a time where we can affect change. Let us as Black people rally together and protect the lives of our families, friends, and communities from the clutches of racism, xenophobia, attack against Black people by governments, agencies, sectors, by standing up against apartheid regime and recommending safe places for Black people and people of African descent across the continent. We would have celebrated people of African descent recently as on the 31st. And upon that note, the IPADG, the International Decade of People of African Descent here in Guyana, would have, upon the heels of the decade, they would have sent out a webinar where they were here in Guyana discussing the resisting the emerging apartheid state. Upon doing this, the vice president here in Guyana would have came out against the people of African descent, and he would have made a bold statement against the IPADG, the people of African descent, by stating that IPADG were using the people of African descent to enrich themselves. And thus, there was a battle between the IPADG and the African organization and the government at large. The ministry here, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports here in Guyana would have taken it upon themselves to write a IPADG asking them for the copy of their audit. And there, the government is the one who usually audits these African organizations, but here it is to try to take the focus off of their blunders. They decide to say, for the decade that on March 31st, the government here in Guyana had not issued not one statement on behalf of that UN chartered decade. They had not issued a statement, and so it shows, therefore, that the African organizations here in Guyana have been at the end of having the government disrespecting us as African people. As Professor Lumumba would have stated, he stated that Africa, the state of Africa is weak. Africa is weak. And he's made that statement to show that when African leaders stand up to speak, they are not given a voice, they are ignored. When their speaking persons are doing all other things besides listening to them because they don't want to affect change. So African leadership is weak. And he said, if, for example, little Israel, the president or prime minister or whoever from Israel is speaking, the government take note, but African is being disrespected. And here in Guyana, we are seeing that the government of Guyana do not respect African. Even though we are the majority here in Guyana, we are disrespected and we keep our mouths closed and we fight against each other. Thus, I would like to say that that we are doing here on this platform is very important. We continue to unite as Africans throughout the continent, throughout the diaspora. Despite of all that we would have went through, our foreparents would have went through, we still have that zeal, that unity to stand today here on this platform to declare with one voice, and by showing up here every Saturday, that we are going to stand united. Even here on the platform, we have been getting attacks from persons against us here as Africans, and even our own sometimes start to attack us, but we are standing here. And as a Guyanese here in Guyana, and I know for certain I can draw a lineage to Ghana, which is just across the Atlantic from where I am. Just to show, before I end by saying this, Ghana is right over the Atlantic. And for me, as an African, to go to Ghana, I have to fly all the way to the United States of America, fly all the way around the world before I get to Ghana, which is just over the Atlantic, spending millions of dollars, the money is going to the white man's pocket, when we can, if we should go just over and cause the African place of Ghana to be having some of that money, we have to go all the way around. So today I want to encourage us as we get on this I Love Black People platform. and as we download the app to our Android and to all our medias, let us continue to share the life, share, and just keep sharing so that others can be a part of this, because united we stand, divided we fall. Here in Guyana, we are battling against the government who has no respect for African people, even though we are the majority in Guyana. And I can say that there are many African nations who the Africans are majority and they're still living in poverty because there's no respect given to them, because we don't have the unity. And today, as we unite, we can make a difference. By just simply coming together on this platform, we can make a difference. I am Clyde Fowler, the ambassador for I Love Black People and the Pan-African movement here in Guyana. And I want to say I am because we are. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Clyde Ford from Guyana. We really appreciate your time and the effort to compile the reports. Thank you very much. I am because we are. Yes, up next, we are going to have another speaker, Butai Kebu from Rebellion. Butai Kebu, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Butai Kebu, can you hear us? Yes, as we are waiting for him to unmute himself, we have some updates. Right now we have one of our colleagues in Zambia, Lusaka. He has I Love Black People, like this one, t-shirts. He's selling them. If you are in Zambia, you can drop a message and we'll help you to get in touch with him, that you can have your I Love Black People t-shirt like this one. And another update with the I Love Black People Safe Places app. Now you are able to see how many businesses that you shared, like safe places that you shared. And there are also more updates that are coming in this incoming week. So feel free to download and share the app with your friends and family. And feel free also to share Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses around you. And another thing is that we are live on Facebook. People who are joining us from Facebook, if you have any problem or any comment, you can just drop it and we'll be able to reach out to you. Yes, Butai Kebu, can you unmute yourself? You are on mute, you can try to unmute yourself. Okay. Up next, we have our sister Anna Karina. Yes, Anna Karina from Kenya. But unfortunately, she didn't join us today because of internet issue. And we are going to continue our call with our brother Abraham Brown from Liberia. Abraham, can you unmute yourself?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, my name is Abraham P. Brown. I'm calling from Liberia. Yeah, actually, I'm proud to be a Pan-African. This is my very first time joining the show. So actually, we need to treat one another equally with pride and dignity as a Black African. Just part our country, Liberia, as we know that this is our country we have, and our president, His Excellency Dr. George Manawia, will him introduce some things into our country, which of course I actually want to appreciate him for. He brought about
Yes, Abraham, can you hear us? Yes, I think he's facing some network issues. Okay, yes, as we are waiting for the Pan-African Healthcare class to start, you can drop in the comment section the date you joined the movement and where you are joining from. And also if you're a member in or an ambassador. And also your review from the app. If you're already like downloaded the app, if not, I'm sharing the link right now in the comment section that you can download the app and share safe places. Yes, our brother Abraham is having some network issues. Yes, if you have any question or comment about the I Love Black People Safe Places app, you can write in the comment section. Then I'll be able to respond to you. Let me also check on Facebook whether we have some questions. Yes, I can see no questions so far. Yes, as I was saying, in a few minutes, we are going to continue with the Pan-African Healthcare class with Nana Akua. Should be joining us soon. And as we are waiting, you can drop your name, where you are from, and the date you joined the movement. Then it will be good like to know who joined the app, I mean the call. Yes, I can see someone is raising their hands. They can try to. Yes, they can try to write their comments in the comment section. Then we'll be able to respond to them. Yes, let's have our brother Atibu. You can unmute yourself. Atibu Bai, can you unmute yourself? Yes, we can hear you.
How are you doing, sir? How are you doing, ma'am?
Yes, you only have 1 minute. Yeah, I'm doing well.
Yeah, I joined this platform a month ago, and I have been a Pan-African and I've been a participant in a very positive manner in the group. But I've never been given the chance to express my view and stuff like this. But like, I want to discuss some issues which are affecting Africa.
Sorry. Atibu, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Okay, so up next, we are going to have our sister Anna Karina from Kenya. Can you unmute yourself? Anna, you are on mute. You can unmute yourself. Hello, Anna, can you hear us? Yes, I think our sister is also having some network issues. Yes, Nana Akua is joining right now, that we can start the Pan-African Healthcare class. And I saw someone asking, how can I purchase my t-shirts? Right now, Right now, our colleague award is in Zambia, Lusaka. And if you are in Zambia, you can let me know that I can drop his contact. You can reach out to him and get your I Love Black People t-shirts. The t-shirt looks like this one. I'm just wearing right now. Yes, soon we will inform you about like other countries. I can see that you are from Liberia. Right now, he's in Zambia, Lusaka. Maybe if you have friends and family from there, you can tell them that there is someone from I Love Black People purchasing, like selling t-shirts I Love Black People, that they can even get that chance to own that t-shirt. Yes. I can see another question from Atiku. Can you guys please reach out to Sierra Leone? I need t-shirts. Yes, as I was saying, soon we will be informing you like which will be the next country that you can receive the I Love Black People t-shirts. Okay, there is another comment. Actually, it's a question from James Nyaka. Hey team, my name is James from South Sudan. Currently, I'm in Uganda. Very soon I will travel back to South Sudan. Joined this platform in April 2020. 2022, how can I purchase my t-shirt? I Love Black People. Yes, as I was saying, right now we have our colleague. We have our colleague in Zambia. Soon we will let you know like which country will be next to receive the I Love Black People t-shirts. If you have a family or friends from there, you can just tell them that there's someone from I Love Black People that has the t-shirts, then they can reach out to us. Yes, I can see that Nana Akua has joined. Nana Akua, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How's everyone?
Yes, welcome.
I hope you can hear me okay. I have my air conditioner on. I've suffered in here hot the last couple of weeks, so I said I can't do that again today. So I try not to cut the air conditioner on, thinking that you may not be able to hear me, but it's a little warm. So hopefully you can hear me okay. So good greetings, everyone. I see some people have their cameras on. Sanjay, Natalia. I only see your email, so I don't know the name, but you have the glasses on. Abraham, Dan, Sule, Joseph, Artigu, Hassan, and I apologize if I'm messing y'all's names up. I might be sounding like one of them Europeans that can't pronounce certain names, but hopefully I got it right and I got the nerve right. But you know, people butcher my name all the time. But thank you all for joining us today. I think I gave a shout out to everybody whose cameras is on, and welcome everybody else. I understand you might have other things going on in the background. So I'm still glad that you are joining us. So today we are talking about cleansing and detoxification. And I think before I get into that, I want to ask again about any issues, health concerns, any supplements, or herbs that you either take currently or would like to take or are interested in based on what we've discussed in the class, what you learned from the packets, from being in the WhatsApp groups, from the handouts, as we're considering and just seeing if it's beneficial to carry our own line or brand. I'm combining words, our own line or brand of supplements. So I wanted to just get some feedback. I appreciate the feedback from last week where some people thought it was a good idea and supported that. Some people gave some of their issues or health concerns or, you know, some feedback, but I'd like to know if there are any herbs or supplements that you are currently taking or that you would like to take or that you have particular interest in. Okay, that's Mama Joyce. Okay, I see your name now. Wait, you're on two different things. Okay, I think you're logged in two different things, right? That's the same face, right? I can't hear you, but I see you talking. But yes, I see that that's still you. Great. Well, I just wanted to give you a shout out. And so if you can type in, if you have any issues, and I see Clyde is on. So thank you all. And if you have any feedback, please put that in the chat and I'll make sure to look at that. So let me see if I can, you know, this is always hit or miss, but let's see if we can share the handouts. See if it comes up. And hopefully if in the process, Yvonne, if you'll make sure I can share the screen. Thank you. And I can, yes. And I see it's going to work. So that is amazing. Good, 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 good. Okay, so, and if you've joined us before, you have maybe seen these handouts. So what I want to talk about is just the need to cleanse and detox the body. So a lot of times people start off with the thought of, oh, I go to the bathroom regularly, or I have regular bowel movements and I eat well, and they think that there's no need to cleanse. And I get this a lot with the colon hydrotherapy piece. You know, a lot of times people will feel like, oh, I don't need to get my colon cleansed because I have a bowel movement every day. But I'd like to point out that there's a lot more involved in cleansing and detoxifying than just having bowel movements. We know that the colon is one of the 5 paths of elimination, but it is not the only organ to focus on when we're doing a cleanse or a detox. Okay, so we'll get to that and we'll talk about that so that we all have an understanding of the need to cleanse and not just the colon. Okay, so let's talk about the definitions of cleansing and detoxification. And we know there are many, but I just sort of pulled out a couple of these, and just know that for these purposes, I do use detox and cleansing interchangeably, while they have slightly different definitions. But one definition of detoxification is the process of removing a poisonous or harmful substance from the body, or the neutralization or mitigation of its effects, right? So you're either removing something that's harmful, or at least you're putting something in the body that's going to neutralize or mitigate the effects of that poison. Activated charcoal is an excellent example of that, right? So it is eventually going to remove it out, but at the same time, it's neutralizing, it's sort of making inactive that substance from causing any harm in the body until it's then flushed out of the system, right? Cleansing is a process of making something thoroughly clean, ridding the body of unhealthy, unnecessary substances, cleansing by washing, right? So these are 3 different definitions here of cleansing, but basically the process of cleansing, washing, purging something out of a thing. So of course we know we can clean other things rather than the body, right? It could be cleansing the mind, cleansing the spirit. So we can wash away negative thoughts. We can wash away negative self-talk, negative influences, wash away, you know, any unbalanced emotions. We talked about flower remedies last week, and we talked about using those to balance our emotions. So it could be the act of washing or cleansing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits, right? And now we know this week and next week, we're primarily talking about the body though, okay? But I do want to expand this concept to not just include the body, but most of what we'll discuss today, we are focusing on cleansing and detoxifying the body and the different organs and systems within the body. And with that, there are certain symptoms or side effects when we do a detox, when we do a cleanse. And it's very, very normal, but can also be very uncomfortable, right? So if we're doing a cleanse or a detox, it's not uncommon to have body aches, headaches, body odor, bad breath, weakness, fatigue, purging, skin rashes, tiredness. Some people even have the inability to sleep well or rest, or some people sleep more. So there are different side effects that are very common. And I think the mental preparation for doing a physical fast or cleanse or detox diet or some type of exercise that cleanses or detox, like a lymphatic massage or something of that sort. The first step in that is knowing there will be some kind of symptoms or side effects. So it's sort of like preparing yourself, not only for what will physically happen, but what can emotionally happen. I can't tell you how many times people have gotten on my colon cleanse machine and started crying, right? So literally there's water being infused in the body, in the colon, and flushing away old fecal matter and toxins and waste out of the body, a very physical thing, right? But they will lay there and I'll, check on them and tears are flowing and they're like, I don't understand. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why I'm crying. So the release, right, can always be both physical and spiritual or emotional, very common. So you have to kind of ready yourself for all the effects of cleansing, of purging, of detoxing. So in the box here to the right, these are some ways in which, and I've kind of mentioned some of them already, but these are some of the ways that we may cleanse. We may use herbals or homeopathics. There are homeopathic detox kits. There are various herbs that are used for cleansing. There are detox diets that you may follow. Some may include cutting out or avoiding certain types of foods that can be toxic or not having health benefits. Fasting, and there are different types of fasting. There may be water fast, there may be juice fast, there may be fasting from certain types of foods. Then there's detox body and foot baths. So you may, in addition to whatever other methods you're using, you may simply do some type of detox bath every night for a number of days. Or you may do a foot bath with clay or salts or essential oils or herbs to cleanse and pull out impurities through the feet. There may be massage. And again, there are many types of massage. There's deep tissue, there's shiatsu, there's lymphatic drainage massage. So all of these are ways of cleansing. And then of course, skin brushing, another topical physical way to cleanse the body is to do dry skin brushing. Okay, and so I'll hit on some of these a little later when we get into what methods to use for what type of cleanse per the 5 paths of elimination. And they are, right, your kidneys, your liver, your colon, the skin, and the lungs, right? So usually when doing some sort of cleanse or detox, we're going to focus on one or all of these paths of elimination. We know that each of these organs do many things, serve many functions, and they're constantly at work. And so as opposed to just the colon, we know that all of these other organs are also eliminating toxins from the body on a daily basis. Every hour, every minute, every second, there are these organs that are filtering out, flushing out, cleansing, trying or attempting to purify themselves to be able to allow the body to function better. And we know that if any one of these areas is compromised or overworked, it will indeed impact the others. So we need to know what are the best methods to clean each of these paths of elimination. So not just focusing on, and let me just say, you know, as a colon therapist, I know the colon is important. However, we have to put as much emphasis on cleansing the other paths of elimination as we do the colon. Bowel movements is just something we do every day or should do every day, right? Most of us don't have to think about it, but we won't always think about what is going to be best to cleanse or purify the kidneys, or what is going to cleanse the liver. How am I making sure that it's healthy and being able to regenerate itself, which it can. The liver is a very resilient organ, but we still have to give it what it needs to cleanse. And then the skin, we definitely, you know, unless we have some sort of blemish or some kind of breakout or some kind of problem with our skin, we have eczema or some kind of rash or something. A lot of times we don't think of our skin, but the skin is our largest organ. It is our protective barrier. So it is very important that we are addressing what the skin needs as well. And then, of course, the lungs, thank God, we don't have to think about breathing. It's one of those things that has a voluntary and involuntary function. You know, God gives us breath, right? I every day thank God for life, breath, right? And the ability to kind of move and function. And breath not being given any shorts, we know that it is important to be able to, right? And so all of these areas have to be addressed. So let's talk a little bit about I don't so much like this handout. I want to skip over that. So let's talk about some ways to cleanse the liver. We know that the liver purifies the blood. It kind of flushes out and filters out all of the blood that runs through the body. And in that regard, we know that it also impacts the skin. So another eliminatory organ. And as I've said, it's very resilient. It can regenerate itself, kind of regrow itself, so to speak. Well, not even so to speak, literally. And so we know that that is a very strong organ, but it takes a beating from a lot of things that we encounter environmentally and from what we put in it. It can be what we eat that affects the liver, but usually it's what we drink. Of course, we know that most people only are familiar with like cirrhosis of the liver, and that, you know, people who drink too much impact the liver. But we also know that people who take a lot of prescription drugs or recreational drugs or over-the-counter drugs are really impacting the liver and its ability to function. We know that there are environmental toxins that get into the bloodstream and that affect the liver because the liver has to kind of function to filter out any toxins that come into the body. So there are many ways in which we toxify the liver from our daily lives, our types of jobs, certain environmental pollutants, different substances that we take into the body. But we need to really be clear on what things can help to cleanse and regenerate the liver. So here on the left, you see a few foods and fruits, vegetables, herbs that are great for that. Grapefruit, beets, carrots, green tea, apples, broccoli, lemons, and limes, arugula, walnuts, cabbage, cauliflower, avocado, spinach, garlic, and turmeric. These are all known and have been traditionally used to cleanse the liver. We know that there are other herbs that we've maybe discussed previously. Turmeric is listed here, cilantro is listed here, but we know there are other herbs like Oregon grape, burdock root, milk thistle, yellow dock. All of these are also herbs specifically geared to cleansing and detoxifying the liver. Beet juice is excellent. Usually this is going to be for the person that does not have diabetes or an uncontrollable glucose level, or that stick around the middle like me and want to lose weight. You wouldn't overdo it with beets, for example, but we do know that beets are really good for, oh, it's amazing how I can see these little words better with these glasses on. I just can't look up outside of the words because then it makes me dizzy. But reading here, we know that beets are great for, I still can't see it, how about that? It's not a good copy, but basically it flushes, helps to flush the liver, helps to purify the blood. Usually people will juice beets. That's an excellent way. And some people who love beets will say that they eat them pickled. I mean, vinegar and you know, we know that to extract the essence of different herbs or foods, we will use vinegar as a menstruum, as a medium to do that. But if you're trying to do beets as a way to cleanse the liver and the blood, juicing is really going to be your best option. If you really hate the taste of it, certainly there's beet powder that you can get, that you can add into smoothies or shakes and things of that nature. But beets are going to be a good option for you. But again, if you're watching your calories, if you know you're watching your weight, you're not going to want to overconsume beets because it is a root vegetable, just like carrots, that can sometimes increase your blood sugar. Cilantro, in addition to being excellent for the liver, we know also removes heavy metals from the body. So if we've come in contact with lead or mercury, or any of the other metals that's commonly found in some aluminum, that's found in the environment and sometimes in our cookware or in foods and things like that, cilantro is excellent for removing metals from the body. If you write it in the chat, I might can get it. Oh, good. See, I thank y'all for, see, I had not looked at the comments. Y'all have given me some feedback about issues. Low blood sugar. I would think you would want to do, so this would be a case, so say if you have low blood sugar, as opposed to doing some of the other high glycemic foods that may not be overall healthier for you, like grains or breads or things of that nature, some of the more high glycemic fruits would probably be better options. So if you juiced pineapple or mango, or some of the things that if we're watching our glucose and we typically are on the high side that we would kind of avoid, but things like grapes and pineapples and mangoes, melons, those would be juices that I would suggest, Natalia, if you had lower blood sugar. And of course, you know, it's just like the diabetic whose blood sugar falls really low, and, you know, orange juice becomes that very common popular thing, right? Where people say, get them some orange juice, their blood sugar is low. Because orange, you know, juice is really sweet and can elevate that. But just with all of that, just be mindful to still have a balance, and maybe mix it with some lower glycemic fruit like apples or berries, cherries, plums, nectarines, things that are more fiber rich, and not doing strictly, you know, your high glycemic or your starchier, sweeter fruits. So that's what I would say with that. So I know I will get sidetracked if I try to go through all the comments, but so let me stay on track and I'll get to that at the end. I started a little early, so I do have a few more minutes. So let me make sure I use it wisely, but I'll save some time at the end. Avocados, we know that this gives us the essential fats that we need, but it's also great for cleansing the liver as well. Garlic, we know that it's strong antiseptic, antibiotic, fights off infections and things of that nature, but we know that it also helps to cleanse and purify the liver, helps to protect the liver. Lemon and lime, I'm always gonna prefer, but they're both great. Lime is a little more alkaline, so I think that's a better option. I think it's superior to the lemon, quite honestly, but both are great for cleansing the liver and having an alkaline, more based diet. This is just an example of a 3-day liver cleanse. It kind of gives you an idea of what to eat throughout the day. And here is, speaking of beets, right? But again, I gave you the precautionary notes with the beets, but we know that for a liver cleanse, beets are excellent. And I mentioned pineapple. Turmeric, I think we've talked a bit about turmeric previously. We know that it's an excellent anti-inflammatory. We know that it boosts the immune system. And we know that it not only cleanses the liver and protects liver tissue, it's also excellent for the kidneys. So we know that turmeric is something good to really add into our diet. However, from my good friend Haki, I don't know if he's on today, he went to Tanzania and bought a bunch of turmeric and ginger back, right? So I have some turmeric that I bought from him. And if you've never dealt with turmeric, or if you've never dealt with fresh turmeric and peeled it, it makes a whole mess all on your counter and all on your containers and juicers and whatever. So be very careful when you are dealing with turmeric. Even the powdered turmeric can stain, but the fresh turmeric root, you just kind of forget, even if you, while you're peeling it, you have your gloves and you've laid out stuff, but then my sister got to the juicer and I guess we kind of forgot, but oh, that juicer had all kind of orange stains on it. It might as well be orange now, not white. No, I soaked it. I had to soak it in vinegar and baking soda overnight. Anywho, that's an aside. Anyhow, still consume turmeric. Just be cautious about staining your things. And then if not, you have to Google how to get the stains out. But turmeric is great. Let's go into talking about the kidneys. So some things to cleanse the kidneys: lemon, water, celery, cucumbers, parsley. These are all great kidney cleansers. Now, if we were talking about herbs, so we have parsley listed here, but we also know that kidney cleansing herbs are things like buchu, which I know is native to southern countries in Africa. I'm not sure if it's native to other parts, but buchu is something I think that can be accessed on the continent. Juniper berry, kidneys. Uva ursi, there are many, the parsley is listed here and now I'm drawing a blank, but these are foods and herbs that we know we can use to flush the kidneys. We know that water is important though, but water is important for everything, but most people will associate water as to flushing and cleansing and washing the kidneys, but know that that's important for everything, for the skin, for the colon, for the liver. Everything requires sufficient water. But it does become particularly important when you're talking about kidney flushes and kidney cleanses. So always drink sufficient water. And if we haven't talked about it lately, you know, water, my simple calculation, and a lot of natural folks take on water, is half your weight in ounces. And that's if you use pounds. If you use kilos, you'll have to do a translator for that. But if, for example, you know, translation on your phone from pounds to kilos. But if you are 180 pounds, you need 90 ounces of water a day. And you usually want to spread that out over the course of the day in 2 to 4 hour increments. You don't want to have 50 ounces all at once and then another 40 ounces later. You want to spread out your water consumption throughout the day. Colon cleansing. These are some good herbs and foods that are great for colon cleansing. We know that flax seeds help with the intestinal flora. That's the good bacteria that's housed in the colon. We know that 50% of the bacteria in the body is housed in the colon. Our job is to make sure that it is good bacteria and not disease-causing bacteria. So we want to make sure we eat well. We want to make sure we flush out the colon and that there's not waste that's sitting there and putrefying itself and creating or turning the good bacteria into bad bacteria. We know that alfalfa is excellent. Alfalfa is one of those highly nutritive super herbs. We know that alfalfa has pretty much every vitamin and mineral in it that we need. So you cannot go wrong with alfalfa. If you can get the actual sprouted alfalfa sprouts, great. But if you're getting the alfalfa herbs, we know that it's a green, rich food or substance, but we know that it is healing and soothing to the entire gastrointestinal tract. Helps with digestion, helps with cleansing. 2 other green foods, green spirulina and wheatgrass, they put them together. They're really 2 different things and they're not, they don't come from the same place. But spirulina is like a sea vegetable and it's highly nutritive with minerals. A lot of people will use it as just a vitamin mineral supplement by itself as opposed to like a pill, you know, supplement. Wheatgrass, both of these are full of chlorella, or chlorophyll, I should say, chlorophyll. And this is what gives us all of our nutrients from our green vegetables. So we know that they're full of oxygen, and these in turn will help us get rid of toxins from the body. Chickweed is good for constipation. It's also a refrigerant or coolant herb, so it's great for cleansing and cooling the body off. Cascara sagrada, this is great for muscle tone in the colon walls. It is a stimulant. It helps the colon move, that peristalsis. It helps it kind of get back moving when it has suffered from constipation and inactivity. Fennel seeds, this is great for lower abdominal pain. It will help the entire gastrointestinal tract again, but it's good for digestion and relieving gas specifically. And this is, I think, really good for children. A lot of times we have young people that will have stomach aches. They may or may not have to have a bowel movement, but it may also be gas. One of the things that I taught my children early on, and you know, a stomach ache is one of those things a child could never really effectively explain, right? You know, it takes them a while to know whether they have to throw up or whether they have to defecate, right? But sometimes it's neither. Sometimes it's just gas pain. So I taught them a yoga pose where essentially you're kind of on the floor and your bottom, right, is tooted up in the air, right? Or you can lay flat on your back and bring your knees to your chest. Both of these types of poses allows the body to push out gas. So sometimes, especially with children who can't really know or determine or decipher what kind of pain they're feeling in their stomach, and it may be gas, these are things they can do. But also giving them some fennel seeds to chew on or make them some fennel seed tea can really help relieve the gas. Aloe vera, we know that this has a mild laxative effect. This is soothing to the gastrointestinal tract, just as it's soothing topically to burns, sunburn, cuts, things like that we use topically for the skin. Peppermint, we know that this alleviates intestinal gas, intestinal discomfort. We know that peppermint tea helps to aid in digestion, so it's a good after dinner tea to consume. Mango, we know this relieves constipation because it has a mild laxative effect as well, just like I mentioned with the aloe vera. And then we know that probiotic yogurt, this is usually like, it has the live active cultures in it, where that helps move the bowels, but also make sure that that good intestinal flora, that good bacteria is maintained in the colon. Similar to fermented foods, kefir and other unpasteurized culture, butter and yogurt and things of that nature. These things we know for the same reason that the probiotic yogurt does. We know that this is good for the intestines as well. And then they listed this very vague thing here of organic fruits. But yes, fruits, especially the high fiber, low glycemic fruits, are going to be excellent for colon cleansing. This is going to be mainly like your grapefruits and apples, your pears, plums, things of that nature. They have others listed here. Not all are the greatest for the colon. It's going to be the more fiber rich ones, the ones that are going to be on the lower end of the glycemic chart. And we'll talk about the glycemic chart soon if you have not caught us previously when we talked about that. So let's talk about poop. Yay for poop. And only a woman with children calls it poop, right? Adults do not call stool or bowel movements poop. But, you know, since I'm being very technical today. But let's follow this Bristol stool chart. It's important to take note of your stool, because this gives you the opportunity to see and know how your food is processing through the body. Because how it comes out is indication of not only what you've eaten, but how it has digested or not digested. More obviously, of course, if you're seeing foods, and as a colon therapist, I've seen all kinds of things come out on the other end. And ideally, of course, I should not be able to know what you have eaten, right? By the time it is coming out of the rectum, out of the colon, after you've had a release, it should not be evident what you've eaten. So if you are eating a lot of black beans or corn, certain seeds, nuts, mushrooms, leafy vegetables, if you are not chewing those foods up really well and you can see them in your stool, you either need to just stop eating them, or you need to really slow down and really take care to chew your food well, because you should not be seeing those things very clearly and evidently in the stool. But we want to stay, in terms of the consistency, you want to stay right around 4 or 5. You want the pieces of waste to be smooth, soft, easy to pass. You don't want it to be really liquidy and watery. And of course, you do not want it to be in hard lumps or nuggets or nut pieces where it's hard to pass. So this is important to always kind of take note of what it feels like when it's coming out. And then, yes, if you get the chance to look at it, what it looks like when you've released it. That's important to know so that you can adjust what you're eating, how you're eating, and that type of thing. So I think, yeah, so I don't, oh, I do actually. Did I add? Oh, yeah, so this is not, so next week I'll go into, I have a different handout where we talk, I included some skin handouts about herbs and foods that are great for the skin, and we'll talk a little bit more about skin. And then we didn't get to the lungs. And so we'll talk about some breathing exercises, and we'll talk about some herbs that are good for the lungs. So I'll make sure to have those handouts, hopefully, so that we can show those. But let me just take a second while I have a couple of minutes left to see what is here in Yeah, that definitely in pre-colonial days, we dealt more with herbs, and even post-colonialism in certain parts of the world, our grandparents, great-grandparents, our traditional healers, that's why I am who I am. I don't come from a family of healers per se. However, we all have those people in our families, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, that had to heal themselves, that had to use what was already provided in the earth, whether it's because of financial situations or if it was because of the inability to seek medical care and attention. And we've used that, and we still can use that. That is precisely what I'm teaching here, is what we can use naturally, what exists from God, you know, that grows out of the ground, that it was specifically created to heal us. And so I'd love for us to get back to that. And even though there have been many attempts to, yes, dispel that, we have the power, right? This is all about empowerment. We have the ability to go back and fetch that information and utilize that art form of healing with natural traditional medicines. Yeah, locally produced. I appreciate Anna mentioning. Yeah, and this is why I focus so much on going to your traditional healer. That's going to be the person that knows what herbs locally grow where you are, what they're used for, and how to access them. That's just one example of why that's important. That would be excellent, Natalia, African herbal farm. But in a sense, like I was just saying, I mean, I think you do. It's just that it looks more like the, you know, the Sangoma or the Bosonfo or the Akonfo or the Iorisha, you know, or the Vodun, you know, priest. It looks more like what some people shy away from, but we do have these herbal African pharmacists, herbal pharmacists, right? We just call them traditional healers, you know, and y'all, if you've heard me talk before, you know, the word I hate is that fetish priest thing. I hate that word fetish, but we call them different things, but we have these people that are very proficient and years of study. To be a traditional priest, it took me 3 years. It actually took me longer because I took a break, right? But it takes a long time, and you primarily study. This is what you do. This is what you learn. This is what you become proficient at. So don't shy away from your traditional healer that's right there where you are, that will have access to the local herbs and can teach you, show you maybe where they grow. So you can learn how to grow them and harvest them yourself. So they're soothing herbs that may be for sensitive parts like the rectum or the anus, even what we maybe use for the lining of the stomach, something like marshmallow root or slippery elm. These are very healing, soothing herbs that can be used for those sensitive areas, whether a cream or something is made with it. Aloe vera also comes to mind, but any of these herbs and substances that are used for soothing, healing, inflamed areas would be used for that, James. Okay, so yeah, high blood. So those are two big varied issues. And if you saw me scroll through, we definitely will talk about diabetes and hypertension next week. So I'm out of time. I do have a couple of minutes, so I'll stay on, and maybe I think there's a few more that I didn't get to, but we'll talk about that next week, along with the passive elimination of the skin and the lungs. Okay, so as always, thank you for listening, and I bid you good health and peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua, for the wonderful lecture. I think we learned a lot from you, and also feel free to email Nana Akua for the handouts. I shared the email in the comment section. Thank you very much, Nana Akua. Yes, up next, you're going to continue with the Pan-African History course with Dr. Tyrone Wright. Dr. Tyrone Wright, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. So welcome everyone. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you, Yvonne. So this week we're gonna have a lot of visuals, but you're not gonna see me. I mean, you see my picture there, but you're not gonna see me because I'm actually not in my normal space right now. So, but I wanted to start with talking about what I shared from last week so we can just pick up appropriately. So let me go to it really quickly. So last week we came in watching a documentary called Cuba: An African Odyssey, and we stopped at Amilcar Cabral, which I want to talk about more because your readings this week were focused on Amilcar Cabral's philosophy and position, and a lot of you seem to be really interested in this because of the fact that Amilcar Cabral is one of the many who speak to the ethnic differences and or conflict that sometimes we face on the African continent. But let's be very clear, we face ethnic difference out here in the diaspora as well. So just sort of in a different form in terms of post-colonial nationalism. So our colonial identities that we have acquired as a result of colonization, or our nationalities that we have acquired as a result of colonization and enslavement, right? And we must remember that these are things that didn't exist before. They are sort of the legacy of having been enslaved and colonized. So real quick, I'm just gonna, let me see if I can, I'm gonna bring it to the queue where there's Amilcar Cabral. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. I just want folks to reference it, or maybe I will, because those of you who weren't here last week or are just coming, this is an important point. And I think I stopped at the point where, hold on 1 second, it's playing and I don't want it to play. Where it talks about the struggle for unity actually creating the bond between us that would facilitate a new or forge a new nation amongst us, okay? And that's a very important point, because ethnically, yes, we can be very different, okay? But in terms of a common struggle, that is very real, right? So let me two things I'm going to do. I'm going to, one, share my screen and give you that blip again on Amilcar Cabral. Two, go to the document that I shared in WhatsApp. And there is still a second document. It's just that I wasn't able to capture it and share it in here. So actually, I'm probably going to do that in real time if I can put my finger on it. So the one document that I shared was from Return to the Source by Amilcar Cabral. And it is one of two readings. The book, for those of you who may be interested, Return to the Source is a collection of essays by Amilcar Cabral, or speeches by Amilcar Cabral. And so we collectively read Identity and Dignity in the Context of Struggle, okay? And so what I want to highlight in particular, so I'm gonna share my screen now. What I want to highlight in particular is two things. One, Amilcar Cabral is unique among the many Pan-Africanists on the continent of Africa. Yvonne, is that your picture on my screen? That I'm moving around. Everybody can see my screen? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, Yvonne, is that your picture on my screen too?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyway, it's okay. We love it. So one, this is the reading, and Amilcar Cabral is once again very, very unique. My criticism of some of our Pan-Africanists on the continent is that we have gotten caught up in this whole Marxist Leninist leanings without understanding, and this is very important for all of you who are on here. This is extremely important. Marx and Lenin and the Eastern Bloc, as they have their revolutions amongst people who are racially homogeneous, were not thinking about us African people. Okay, they were not. They were not theorizing about revolution and the material aspects of it and class in respect to us. They were talking very specifically because they're saying, hey, we're not racially different. What the difference is between us in that context is material difference, a capturing of the resources by a few and a denial to the many, and the class structure, right? The class hierarchy. No true communism really comes out of the Eastern Bloc. And why do I say that? Because in spite of it all, in spite of what they might say, they still have an aristocracy. Okay, that's why you can have, you know, the king or whatever the case may be, and all of that, the story about their royalty. Okay, the reason why you can say that is because if you are all equal, if you are in practice of a true form of communism, then you don't have that. And even once those systems are passed away, they still have a hierarchy in their society. So it's almost nonsense. When we want to look at communal systems, we can look to our own. We can look to ancient Africa. Okay. We can look to ancient Africa if we want to understand communal systems, right? Social systems. We don't have to go to Europe with regard to that. So it's important to understand that, true, there may be some universal ideas and principles present in their struggle as in any other struggle. However, it does not mean that it fits neatly over the reality of African people. Okay. And so when we adopt this strict Marxist Leninist line in rejection to the Western line, the truth is it's neither is a solution per se for the African context, because our situation is different. Now, why am I harping on that? Because Amilcar Cabral, on here, you see the essay that we read, one of the essays that we read, Identity and Dignity in the Context of Struggle. But what he talks about also is that history is a natural phenomenon, and that history for us, African people, is relevant. The Eastern Bloc, the Eastern Europeans would say history and culture are not relevant. It's just a material and class analysis. No, that can't be the solution for Africans, because history has been part of who we are. This is part of our culture, how our cultural memory. Okay. And so our liberatory process, our process of liberating ourselves, must include reclaiming our history. So some of you are familiar with Amilcar Cabral. You know, he wrote an essay, he gave a speech called History as a Weapon. Right? And that's important because history is a weapon. If someone can erase your memory, then they can tell you they didn't do this or that or the other. And you have to start from today. And you have no recollection of what has happened or context, who you are, who they are. None of that, if they can erase your memory. And in many instances, in terms of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere, that is almost where we find ourselves, right? There is an erasure of people's history. Many people today in the United States, in the Western Hemisphere, they will quickly begin their history with slavery. Okay, they will quickly begin their history with slavery when African people are the oldest people on the face of the earth, and we can go back to the beginning of time. But if we begin our story with slavery, then someone can call you a slave today. And sometimes they do. Right? If you can begin your story with slavery, then you begin your story with defeat. If you begin your story with colonization, then you begin your story with defeat, domination. And we're saying that, you know, our story is longer, greater, the first human story on earth. Okay, the greatest human stories. And that these are moments in our history. And soon, to be quite frank, it'll be the past, meaning the story of our oppression and how we overcame it. You know, it's unfortunate for us that we're living during this particular period, but this hasn't always been our story, right? And we're not a defeated people. There are people on the earth who are a defeated people, who have ceased to have any victories and are living in the complete domination. And I won't go real deep into it, but you know, there are groups of people who have encountered white supremacy and culture and Europeans, and there's not a whole lot to say about them today, right now. Okay, I won't be specific for, you know, I don't want to offend, but that is not the story of African people everywhere we are. We are still fighting. Okay, so history must be a part of our liberation process. Culture must be a part of our liberation process. Culture is not irrelevant. There are no human beings who live outside of a cultural construct. The first human beings are in Africa. Therefore, to be human means to be African. And how do we know that? Because that is the only existing culture at the time. Right? There are no other human beings to contend with for a great deal of time in our history on this earth. Most of the 200,000 to 300,000 years on this earth as Homo sapiens, we have existed in Africa, and African culture has been the primary and the only cultures in the world until we go outside of Africa and create culture in those places. Okay. So part of us reclaiming who we are before colonial domination, before enslavement, before the scourge of what we see, hyper-capitalism, you have culture, your own culture, right? But we know to strip a person of their culture is also to attack who they are. Our culture tells us what we value, what we don't value, how we live, and why we live that way. Okay? So that's what culture does. Part of liberating ourselves is reclaiming that culture. And once again, why am I giving emphasis to these two things? I'm giving emphasis to these two things because of the simple fact that the Marxist-Leninist line says history and culture are irrelevant. And many, unfortunately, of our Pan-Africanists on the continent of Africa adopted a similar philosophy in their liberation struggles. Amilcar Cabral did not. He rejected this. And you can look at much of his philosophy and return to the source. This is one key essay and speech that he gave, Identity and Dignity in the Context of Struggle, where he breaks down some of this understanding. Okay. Right. So he talks about the role of culture, the role of history in our struggle, and how these are tools of liberation. Very important points, because all too often we find ourselves identifying with other people's struggle and not understanding the complexity and the value and the integrity of our own struggle. Okay. We'll talk about, oh yeah, Geronimo and the Native Americans and so on. And we have one of the most long-standing and righteous struggles on the face of the earth. Okay. And it should be studied as such. So that's just one aspect. The other aspect, and I'm going to go to the clip on the film, is that I stopped it at the conversation where Emil Cabral was, they stopped it in the midst of talking about why he did not want Cubans in particular who lend support, why he did not want them to engage in struggle. And it was just as simple as this. He understood that we have, since time immemorial, had ethnic diversity in Africa, right? We have had ethnic diversity. We are the oldest neighbors. We are the oldest friends. We are the oldest foes. Okay? We have been here first. Just think about 200,000 to 300,000 years on Earth. We have been here and we have been side by side. And so we have very long-standing relationships. This whole thing with white supremacy, Europeans, European people even, has only existed for the last, European people, let's be very clear, by their own studies, have only existed for the last 7,000 to 8,000 years, first of all. Okay, so let me say it another way. These people who identify as white have only been in existence by their own science for the last 7,000 to 8,000 years. Okay. So that being the case, you have a situation where Africans have been on the earth as the first and only humans for the last 200 to 300,000 years. If you don't know how long that is, think of it in terms of money. I'm sure that will clear it up for you. Would you rather $300,000 or $7,000 or $8,000? You become very clear on the difference when we talk about it in economic terms. Okay, you become very clear about the difference between 7,000 or 8,000 and 200,000 to 300,000. I'll take 300,000 over 7,000 or 8,000 any time of the day, night, year, month, whenever. Okay. So the reality is that we have been here for a significant amount of time. We have lived side by side. We have the longest standing relationships. And then we find ourselves only in the last 400 to 500 years presented with this pathology of race and this pathology of racism that has permeated the world. And it is pathology because race is not real, right? These are a very sort of extended branch of the human family tree that have introduced something to the world that has been very corrupt and detrimental to the welfare and the well-being of all of us, right? Because racism denies people things that they are humanly entitled to and decreases their life chances. So the point is that now we have been presented with this issue that's only 400 years old. We are going to have to overcome our previous issues, whatever they are, right? And come together momentarily even to defeat this momentary scourge or this momentary issue that we are facing in the world. And I do hope that it is momentary, and I'm speaking in, you know, large historical terms, right? When you're talking about 200 to 300,000 years on the earth, 400 to 500 years is nothing, right? When you're talking to 200 to 300,000 years on the earth, you know, 7,000 or 8,000 years is a moment too, right? And so we are living in the midst of the moment. And so what Amilcar Cabral is seeking to say is saying, before colonialism, we were not one people in the sense that we were culturally the same. Before colonialism, which forced us together with people we are very different from and divided people who are the same, we weren't in this circumstance. And so today, now we will fight together for the first time. And that is why he was saying the victory, the struggle will prepare the people for the victory, right? He was aware of the ethnic diversity of the people of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. And therefore, he understood that this would be the first time in their history that they would actually come together and fight a common enemy. So I'm going to go to the clip of that because I see I only have a few more minutes. Hold on.
The belief that they were firmly allied to the Eastern Bloc. But he had a vision and a very clear strategy as to how to fight his battle for independence.
Es decir, que América no llega pidiendo, deme hombre, mándenme hombre, ¿no? Teníamos la idea de que habíamos sacado ya del Congo, de que venían a venir más tropas de cubanos a ayudar a América. Y en aquel momento América no quería más tropas de cubanos.
Son los guineanos que tienen que luchar. Y tú metes un batallón ahí, va a ser el batallón y no los canguros. Y tienen que aprender mediante la lucha, prepararse para la victoria. Es una idea muy, aunque fuera un poco más larga la lucha, es una idea muy interesante de ir forjando en medio de la lucha la nación. Hay que forjar una nueva nación, además tribus diferentes, solo la lucha por unirla.
Che's defeat in the Congo was still a fresh wound, and Fidel began to consider how his help could be more effective. This time, the bulk of Cuban support came in the form of artillery experts, doctors, and technicians. Soldiers would go only if requested.
They also took some lessons from the debacle in Congo. In Guinea-Bissau, the involvement was quite different. It was more of, in a good sense, technical nature of helping local forces of PAGC, the army, especially helping in those specialities when they hadn't got enough expertise, you see, to fight Portuguese. So it's more of, in the good sense, supportive role, you see.
Amilcar had no illusions about his capacity to defeat the mighty Portuguese Empire. He wanted to wear them down in order to get them to the negotiating table.
En la conversación que tiene Amilcar conmigo, en el frente, él me explica, se basaban en no atacar los cuarteles con intenciones de tomarlos, porque no había suficiente fuerza en condiciones en ese momento para eso. Lo que quería era desangrar, hacerle baja, bastante baja al enemigo y hacerle la vida imposible con ese tipo de combate. Hasta que se le haría la vida imposible en los cuarteles.
The war escalated, and the Portuguese sent 22,000 more soldiers. Amilcar's demoralization tactics had worked. The Portuguese felt trapped. Veteran captains from the colonial army in Guinea-Bissau decided to take the initiative in their own hands. It was they who overthrew the dictatorship, creating the Carnation Revolution in Portugal. And within months, the Portuguese colonial empire crumbled like a house of cards.
In this liberation movement, there was no military victory, never. And they did not destroy the colonial machine, but they created, even vis-à-vis Algeria and France for that matter, they created such a situation that before getting victory, they oblige, they force the enemy to retreat, to come to some compromise. Usually it's in the form, it's compromise. In the essence, it's the victory of the liberation forces. That's exactly happened in each and every country.
The Portuguese army left Guinea-Bissau in October 1974. But the man who pushed the empire over the brink was not there to witness the fruits of his struggle. Amilcar Cabral was killed a year earlier by members of the Portuguese secret police. The who's who of revolutionaries gathered at Amilcar's tomb. Beside Fidel Castro stood Agostinho Neto, the leader of Angola's liberation movement. Cuba had for years been supporting Neto's movement, but the scale of Fidel Castro's military involvement in Angola after the collapse of the Portuguese Empire would soon change the face of the continent.
Okay, we're gonna stop there. Sorry guys, I had to discipline one of my kittens. So, all right. So that is the context in which Amilcar Cabral comes with. I'm going to be sharing another document that should have been shared this week. And that being said, if you see the syllabus, you know that then we move on to another portion of the course where we start to look at other proponents of Pan-Africanism on the African continent. But thus far, we have looked at Patrice Lumumba, we've looked at Amilcar Cabral, and of course, we get to others, as you know, Nkrumah and others, but we're looking at the philosophical thought. And Nkrumah is an important figure. I didn't skip him. I just wanted to, hit on some important topics to further deepen our discussion on Nkrumah and Nkrumah's philosophy, which organizationally would produce organization on the African continent, right? That was Pan-Africanist in nature, the OAU. But Nkrumah's philosophy and position on Pan-Africanism would encourage and certainly establish this idea of continental unity, not just national unity, unification of the Congo or unification of this or that country, but continental unification. And for African people, a unified continent for African people certainly would be an expression of Pan-Africanism, particularly when that unification means that you would have to fight off the cloak of colonialism and imperialism, which were exploitative and oppressive in nature, right? So unity for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation, right? So you unify the continent in the face of defeating colonialism. It is certainly one of the highest expressions of Pan-Africanism we will ever see. So we will talk about Nkrumah next week. I will give you that one other reading from Amilcar Cabral, but then we'll also have other readings this week, which will address Nkrumah. I don't know who is this, Mupenzi. I don't know how. I mean, the lectures are every week on Saturday, so I'm doing questions. I'm 2 minutes over for once. That's good, close to time. You know, you might want to put it on your own Google Calendar or whatever the case may be, because same time, same place every week. There's a syllabus that you can go back to. That's I could repost it in the course. The syllabus tells you what we're doing every week. Okay. I'm reading comments. Anna Nicola, I think that we are under slavery due to the fact that we don't have the privilege of living our things. Well, I don't think, you know, Anna, I think that the truth of the matter is that we have invented things, and we have developed society and civilization and all that kind of stuff. And so we had an experience in the world. And I think because we're living during this particular period, it seems as if this is how it is. But that's why history is so important, to know what came before us. You know, I have a consistent conversation going on with few people about the fact that I fundamentally reject beginning one's history with enslavement. No people's history begins with enslavement. Okay. And so, you know, and I do think that there's a different, I don't know where you're writing from, Anna Nicola, but, you know, there's a different, in terms of how I speak about the African story in the United States, I speak about it very different than a lot of people. And I actually am a historian. It is actually an epic story, because we experienced enslavement, but we also are a people who defeated the institution of slavery in the United States, a 250-year-old institution that had 80% of the US economy wrapped up into it. And yes, African people, we brought that to an end. It was not part of their agenda to end slavery. Slavery was supposed to be, physical slavery was supposed to be in existence right now. Let's be very real. That was not part of the plan. And if you are within the United States, you know, if you've paid attention to some of the US politicians and their rhetoric around things like this, you know that they divulge every now and then that they never planned to end slavery, that it was like, oops, you understand? And even if you know the history of the Civil War, you know that Lincoln never planned to end the institution of slavery, right? He said, if I had to free all the slaves or none of the slaves in order to preserve what? The union of white men at the time, because that's what the white United States was, the unification of white men. And why did they want to preserve the union? Because they know that if they had a divided nation, they would be vulnerable to reinvasion by external forces, other European groups like the French, like the Spaniards, like other Europeans that had been here in the Americas and fighting over these very territories. So they were not about to allow these colonies that unified, right, to be divided as a nation so that they can be conquered, and would have to fight over these territories in North America once again. But my point is simply this: the African people who were enslaved, if you know the specific story, the Contraband Act, James, Robert Small, all of the series of small events, and Frederick Douglass, who said to Lincoln, you are either a coward or a fool not to let the 500,000 Black people in this country fight for their freedom, meaning there are 500,000 people ready, prepared to fight. Certainly there were many more millions of us who were in bondage. But if you understand this specific story, you know that African people within the United States brought that institution of slavery to its knees and defeated it. It wasn't ended by white men. It wasn't ended by other people. They had too much of an interest in it. And so my point is that it depends on your vantage point in the story. I feel like that's a victorious story, to be quite frank with you. And we are on a steady march, you know, to our liberation, you know. But then there's people who don't know history. See, this is why history is important, right? Because there are some people who will give you, oh, Lincoln freed the slaves. No, not exactly. Okay. And then there's also those specific stories, right? Those stories of how during that very period I'm speaking of, there are African people who were enslaved on plantations. And when that moment came and the Contraband Act came down, and moments before the Emancipation Proclamation would be established, and not for all, but, you know, it comes to their attention, there is a moment in time where enslaved African persons could kill their enslaver right where they were, and they did. Okay, and they would make their way to Union lines and they would claim their liberation and freedom. And they didn't know what their future held, but they knew that they were not going to be enslaved again. They had won the victory over their bodies. So anyway, I don't want to go too deep, and, you know, whatever the case may be, it really depends on your vantage point. This is why it's so important to know your own history. Okay, so sorry guys, I'm not on picture today, not seeing me, you know, visually, but I feel like then maybe there should be some more focus on the words and the materials. And so you got a little visual anyway with the film. And you can go back and watch that Cuba and African Odyssey. It is on YouTube. It is in the group as well. Do you have to receive something like certificate afterwards that you should? Yeah, there is a certificate. Emmy, we're happy to have you. Hello, from Namibia. Okay, so I think that's it. I'm not understanding, Sanji, your question. Anyway, some of your questions, just because of the grammatical, you know, the grammar, I'm not able to understand. History is always a reminder, Sanji. I'm not sure what your, yeah, and sure, there is slavery still that exists in the world, right? Slavery has always, if you understand that, and that's a whole nother conversation. Slavery has always existed in the world. What is unique about what happened in the Western Hemisphere is that it was perpetual slavery, right? For generations and generations. That's not what was the typical practice in the world. Matter of fact, slavery in the world at large, most people, every group of people have experienced slavery, and usually at the hands of their own people, okay? What's different about what happened in the Western Hemisphere, the transatlantic slave, is that it was a perpetual slavery, no possibility of freedom. But anyway, I'm gonna end right there. You can go and look at the what do you call it? The YouTube video, Cuba and African Odyssey. I can repost it in the group, but what we'll be doing from here on out is reading Nkrumah next week and dealing with the issue, and you'll see me on camera next week, and dealing with the issue of continental unity, the highest expression of Pan-Africanism, the Organization of African Unity, and ultimately what we know today, the expression of that organization, the African Union? Is it living, is it living to the original vision mission of the OAU? And we will look at some ways to qualify that, okay? As we also will revisit some other proponents on the continent of Africa who were proponents of Pan-Africanism, okay? All right, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for committing your Saturday to us. Yes, I think so too. Thank you, Kanadu Ebenezer, for joining us for the first time. And I will, now everybody has comments, but we got to go. Yeah, so anyway, sanction and slavery of prisoners removed. Yes, okay. Yeah, of course, everybody wants the 13th, the clause in the 13th Amendment to be removed. I mean, that was, that was the United States government remixing slavery, right? Yeah, we're gonna, remix this, right? As much as possible, right? So, right, exactly, but certainly, but they can take that clause out. It doesn't mean that people will stop being targeted, and that the pipelines to prison here that are set for Black people, both men and women, let me just say that, because a lot of people just know about men being incarcerated. The fastest growing incarcerated group of people, fastest growing, is Black women. Okay, so it's not just it's Black people in the United States in particular are targeted for the prison industrial system and are largely victimized, although not victim. I'm not saying we are victims, but we are victimized by systematic racism for sure. Okay, so anyway, thank you all for joining us. As you know, yes, this information is meant to solidify you, to develop you in an ideological, in terms of your knowledge, your theory, and therefore can engage in practices that would advance the interest of African people in the face of racism, which is a pathology, which is a pandemic, and it's going to be around until we end it, right? Okay, so I am because we are, and thank you so much. Thank you, James. Thank you so much for joining us and loving Black people through action.
Yes.
I am because we are.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wright, for
okay. Thank you.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am because we are.
Thank you.